went into the change room after being a main figure in Plymouth, went into there, and it was kind of like, oh, you're starting again. And it's like all these kind of things, and the characters, like some parts of it was very cliquey, and the way it wasn't just really sit with me. Some great people, but very cliquey, the way they treated certain people and all this, it just didn't sit right with me. An agent that wasn't really looking after me at the time, yeah, you go here, ultimately it wasn't a good thing, and then I'm living above Hooters as a young 18-year-old, and where do I go? Do I just sit inside when I'm here in the bar and stuff, and things aren't going right and all? I'm gonna get sucked into that a little bit, you know what I mean? He didn't care about that. So Barry Ferguson, big character, will let you know about things, you know what I mean? He'd get in the ball, Jordan would smash him, go through him, no thought of it whatsoever, smash him, not say sorry, carry on with his game.
Jake Jervis' story is a testament to the resilience and adaptability required in professional football. From the English leagues to the Turkish Super League, the Scottish Premiership, and even the Indian football scene, Jake has truly seen it all. Jake's career kicked off with Birmingham City, where he made his first team debut in the FA Cup, playing with the likes of Barry Ferguson, Stephen Carr and Lee Bowyer. His early experiences included loan spells with several clubs, including Hereford United, Notts County, Swindon Town and Portsmouth, where he first made his mark in the Football League. However, it was Plymouth Argyle that Jake found stability, spending 2.5 seasons and making a significant impact. But the next chapter of Jake's career saw him move to Finland, playing for SJK, where he spent 2.5 seasons before joining Indian club East Bengal. Now he's on the Mindset for Sport podcast, speaking with myself, Christie Scanlon, about his mental challenges, resilience, identity shift, and how to support athletes and well-being in the world of soccer.
Before this podcast begins, just a quick one to let you know that over 90% of those that watch this channel do not subscribe. So if you haven't already, please click the subscribe button down below. The bigger the channel, the bigger the guests, and more importantly, it's absolutely free. Enjoy the episode.
Was there a moment when you realised you were good at football?
I'd say probably then. When I joined that team, I was like, okay, these are older than me. I started playing against others, and I was a defender at this point, I was a centre-back, which my name came with the JJ part. Obviously, it's a bit obvious, but there was someone same name as me, same boots, same everything, so we kind of were best friends, but we needed to differentiate, so it was JJ from that, so you start to get different things from that. But it was when I started playing there and I realised I can take the ball from defence, take everyone on and score, it was kind of like I've got a little bit here, so it kind of developed from there. And
when was the moment when you went into academy football and obviously experienced your journey as a pro footballer, or building up to the pro footballer? Well,
it started young, to be honest. I'd say my first experience was 8 years old. It was I was training like a local Telford thing. They put me forward to go to Aston Villa. Went there, didn't hear anything for a long time. Thought, why isn't anyone getting in touch with me? My mum she'd received a letter that I wasn't going to get signed by them, but she was just protecting me. She was trying to just leave it and didn't really say anything on it. So then I was kind of like, okay, they've not got in touch for whatever reason, but they had got in touch. Then playing in the summer tournaments, which is probably the best football I've ever the most I've enjoyed football, just a football tournament. You run around with your friends, you've got to find what pitch you're on and all that kind of stuff. I just played there, got picked up by Wolves, so I've mentioned before. I was there 10 till 12 and then got released because I didn't want it enough. I was told apparently as a young kid I didn't want to be a footballer enough. I didn't do all the things, and you're hearing that at 11 years old. So there you go, there's the first setback and the thing that you hear in these different transitions and stuff. So that happened, and then from there went to Shrewsbury, and that's where it really took off, really, where I had teams wanted to pay money for me at the age of 15, and that was really where I went from just playing at Shrewsbury, and it was playing in the street all day long. And where it's changed now, there's so many training sessions. Back then for people my age, it was you'd learn playing with your friends and stuff on the street, and that's where you get your hours in to develop and learn. So then at 15 is when I went to Birmingham, and that's where it got real, really.
You mentioned obviously that coach of Wolves. Was that kind of the light bulb moment for you to try and prove a point or motivate you? They reckon obstacles in the way make the man that they are.
100%, yeah, but at that age I'm 12 years old, so it was the other way. I took it very hard. It was very difficult for me to process someone trying to tell me that I don't want it enough when all my life is about football. I'm in the classroom at school, I want to play football. I'm come back from school, I want to play football in the morning. I've always had a ball. When I used to see brothers and sisters and family members in Wolverhampton as I lived in Telford, they remember me with a ball all the time. So that's what my life was about. So someone telling me that I don't want it enough as a kid was like, well, what do you mean? There's a lot of questions for me to process in my head. But Yeah, it was difficult at school as well. We had a lot of players that were at Wolves as well, so I'm around people every day that are talking about Wolves. But now I'm at Shrewsbury and it's looked down on as it's not as good as Wolves and that kind of thing. So a lot of psychologically, it was difficult for me to process these things. So yeah, it was difficult. But then as I started to get the confidence, I was playing at Shrewsbury, and again I was playing an age group above. I was still the best player in that age group above and talented players, but I was still having people watch me, and it started to get real, and that's where the belief came back. And then it's really showed, you know what I mean? It showed on the pitch, and then I was allowed to develop myself.
Just on that, you mentioned obviously Shrewsbury and the enjoyment element and the intrinsic drive to go and play football. Do you think that changed during your time playing football, going into that professional environment? And the reason I ask that is that there is evidence, and there is previous football players that I've interviewed, they mentioned the pressures externally changed the motivational self-determination of a player. Did that ever change for you? I'm just interested on that.
When I look back, I thought, no, I just took it in my stride, because when I went there, I was flying still. I took it in my stride, I became one of the better players there again. I was still being pushed again, but when I look back, I know, yes, 100%, I walked into the car park and I'm seeing Ferraris, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing that, and I'm like, oh, I want that, how do I get that? Oh, he's got that, he must be better than me, a lot of thoughts come into your head, and then you go into it and you get the academy manager, he was to this day the best coach I've ever had. He really allowed me to understand, like, look, this is football and this is what it's going to take, because I didn't really want to work that hard. I didn't want to, as a young lad, I wanted to get on the ball and that's what I wanted to do, take players on and all that stuff, but did I want to run back? No. Did I want to do all these things? At that age, you don't get the understanding of what it takes to be a footballer, so it becomes very serious when you go in 15, 16 and say, oh yeah, you're going to go train with the first team, and then you're like, wow, hold on a minute, people are smashing into people are swearing, effing, blight, all these kind of things, and it's real. Like, I've gone from kids football, because you know what I mean, you get to kind of that teenage level, 18 to that, and even below that is totally different. There's all transitions from up to 16, then 16 to 18, and then the biggest jump, 18 to the first team. And obviously I'm doing this at 15, 16 years old, where I'm getting pushed on, so it was hard to really say. And even like that imposter syndrome, should I be here? It's a big one, where I'm like looking around, I'm like, oh, should I be here? This guy's like players like Mikel Forsell, who's played for his national team, but at Chelsea, and probably one of the best players I've ever trained with and played with, because he was that good. It was kind of like, should I be training with him? Should I be here? There's a lot of things, and I spoke about it with a friend of mine that was exactly the same at Wolves, and he was, again, one of those players above everyone, this and that, but he still felt that despite how good he was, it was still that imposter syndrome of, oh, should I really be here? Do I deserve to be here? Despite the fact of, do you know you can do it? But you can do it. Everyone else is telling you can do it and all this stuff, but when they're telling you, like, yeah, but do you truly believe it? It's a very different thing.
So talk to me about that transition then. So you mentioned Shrewsbury and then Birmingham. You mentioned Mikel Forsell and all the international stars there. Premier League football club at that time. Mm-hmm. How did you cope with that? You mentioned obviously the imposter syndrome element, but how did you cope with maybe integrating into Birmingham and finding opportunities and understanding the culture and the demand of a Premier League football club?
I think, like I said, I mentioned Terry Westley there. I think Terry Westley, Steve Spooner, the people that were at the club really helped me to feel welcome. There was things that had gone even around that time that I've bypassed, really, around the 15, 16-year-old when I had these clubs after me. My mum was going through something where she had a brain tumour, so that was kept away from me, kind of thing, by my mum to protect me. Again, that's my mum, she's a protector, and I think that's why I've become that kind of protector, and that's my personality and persona. But that definitely allowed me to feel at home and welcome, because they would come and pick me up from my house in Telford after school, and when I'd come out of school and stuff at that age, they really allowed me to settle. I stayed with the academy manager, which was great, but obviously difficult at times as well, where if things didn't go right, you know what I mean, you knew when to not go around and different things. But there was a lot of life skills and things that were given to me that really allowed me to grow as a person, and little things that stay with me today, which little comments, and like on his board I can still see it, not bad gets you the sack. It's like kind of those things just being the norm and fitting in. I knew that wasn't right. There was more. You had to do more. You had to do extras. You had to touch on all the little things that would allow you to grow, and the habits and the discipline and the stuff that comes with it. You
mentioned obviously the dog eat dog context, obviously being at Birmingham. Not to name names, but can you remember a moment which you felt that? Can you remember a moment where you were like, whoa, I need to change maybe my perception here of trying to, you mentioned, look after your family but also have a contract? Is there anything that stands out?
Yeah, I can definitely remember there was a boy that came through at the same time with me, Jordan Much. He's gone on, had a great career, played in the Premier League and playing in various countries. It's kind of I'd say the difference between him and me was he didn't care about that. So Barry Ferguson, big character, captain, will let you know about things, you know what I mean? He'd get in the ball, Jordan would smash him, go through him. No thought of it whatsoever. Smash him, not say sorry, carry on with his game, which is needed. Within the game, it's kind of like, okay, I've done my job, let me move on. It's not a thing whereas usually someone might say, oh, I'm not going to do that because he's a captain and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, you're a bit more like imposter thing. You're a bit more aware of these different things. So you're not, oh, I'm not going to do that. But ultimately, you do that, you'll get respect from someone. He would have bit about it, like a Barry Ferguson would have been angry about it and gone after him and all that stuff. But he ultimately would have respected it as well. So there you go. You're brought into the group. There's that rapport built up and that kind of thing. So those things there, those little things there are real, like kind of, yeah, I'm a part of the group now. I'm accepted. And for me, I thought it was like, okay, if I do this, take someone on score, yeah, they're going to say this and that. But it was more, they're looking for characteristics. And that's the thing, the big characteristics that define you, that define all of us. If you took away everything from a human being, how do I define you? It's your characteristics. It's who you are as a person. That's how I'm really going to understand who you are. It's not the way you look and all that stuff, because there's a lot of things like, oh, well, he's got this, he's got that. A lot of people have got that. So what am I going to define you by is your characteristics and what you show me. So it's a lot of that is important.
Dude, obviously reflecting on that period, there was a lot of experienced players at Birmingham at that time. So obviously you've probably, do you think you experienced that element more than maybe anyone else? Just because of, you know, again, reflecting the Bowies, the Carrs, the Fergusons, as you mentioned, very kind of experienced pros. Do you feel like maybe that there's an overload in that kind of area for you in that experience that you had?
Yeah, even the first name you said there, Bowyer, we had when I was young, there was a possession that we were doing pre-season. I think it was me and Jordan actually against two of the senior ones, doing well. I've megged him, gone past him. Next one, gone past him again. Next one, I'm not going past him. He took me down on the floor. I was like, oh, that hurt. Like I landed, carried on, whatever, doing what I was doing. But he let me know again after that. I knew I couldn't turn because he was right on me. You know what I mean? There's those little things there because of experience. It's like, okay, you've made me once, okay, that's not going to happen again. I'm going to stop it here. And that's like an experience in football. You know that if I stop this person higher up the pitch, they're not going to get the chance to create a goal further up the pitch. You know what I mean? So, but that's experience, like you say, that's the bit they've got that you wouldn't have when you're younger. You'll think, oh, someone else will stop it. Whereas if I stop at the source, it's not going to happen. So with that instance, like I went back in, I was like, oh, thumb's hurting, went to the physio, had ruptured and broke my thumb, just landed on the floor, and like he's fouled me twice. So that was kind of like, that had happened when I was going away with the first team pre-season. Like these things that happen that define careers and, well, not define, but are a part of your journey. Like I was away with the first team, I was going to be I think I was one of 3 strikers. So it's like your chance to go away pre-season, you're playing a game, you produced, you're potentially there for the first game of the season. Didn't go on tour because of my thumb. I had to wait 2 weeks. Ended up going out on loan, getting told, yeah, you're going to play at Notts County. When I was going there, they had an experienced striker again, who was the main man. I was told, yeah, we'll play 2 up front. We never played 2 up front. It was just them saying they wanted me in as cover kind of thing, because I did well on loan, my first loan move and stuff. So it's kind of a bit of the deception that happens in football and politics of like, yeah, well, we'll get this good young lad in just in case. And that's the things that happen. Like that happened, my thumb. Then an agent that wasn't really looking after me at the time, yeah, you go here. Ultimately, it wasn't a good thing. And then I'm living above Hooters as a young 18-year-old in Nottingham. It's, where do I go? Do I just sit inside when I'm here in the bar and stuff and things aren't going right and all? I'm going to get sucked into that a little bit, you know what I mean? So it's hard for me to really stay focused if X, Y is going on. And I've not no one to guide me in this. There's no one to say, okay, well, you shouldn't really be doing that. Or should you even go into a house there? Like, player care, like today, if there was someone in place, should they really put an 18-year-old above Hooters? And you don't do, you know, it's temptation, it's things. Even if you're not an 18-year-old, your temptation is a player, oh, we'll just go down to the bar, have something to eat, and then you're there, oh, let's have a drink. Like, you know what I mean? It's the temptation there. I think if you can take that away, it's a lot easier for me to focus and say, okay, instead of going there, let me go to the gym or do something, and those things happen. And then it wasn't a thing. There was no one to really guide and help, and that was a difficult thing throughout my career. I didn't have anyone to turn to that and experience the thing I experienced, and someone to really allow me to be heard. Like, there's people that were like, yeah, just do better, just do this, or don't worry about it, suppress. But where is me being heard and me speaking to someone and allowing me to talk about whatever it is in my life?
It's interesting how you mentioned people go, don't worry about it. And I find that mad if you say, don't think of the pink elephant, you think of the pink elephant, you know, so it makes things worse. Yeah. Just on that then, did you feel a lack of trust with the people around you in terms of the environment that you're in? You mentioned your agent, and then you mentioned going into a club where they promise you certain things, and then all of a sudden you're not involved in the promise that they suggested. And you mentioned not having a kind of an ecosystem of people around you. Did you find a sense of maybe a lack of trust with people within football, a sense of maybe, I wouldn't say paranoia, but thinking and checking your shoulder all the time of, can I trust this person? Is this person suggesting the right things for me?
And this is the thing, and that's a big thing I learned from when I was in the 18s, is the word like play the game. Like ultimately, you know, some people are going to just tell you what they think you want to hear. So people aren't going to be truthful. Yeah, you're going to play this week, you're going to do this and that. You'll come to the thing, you're not in the squad, like, and you're getting it again. Oh well, why is that not happening? You're asking these questions, but then a lot of people do the point the finger, what's going on, this and that, and they're not counting. I know myself, I wasn't performing when I had the chance on the pitch as such, but was I given that kind of platform to say, okay, oh well, that's not working, let's try this, and someone to really talk to me? No, but at the same time, I can look at myself and say I wasn't doing enough to really cement myself in the team. So that's a big thing where, one, look at yourself. Are you doing everything you can? Are you doing the extra little bits? Are you doing your prehab? Are you doing stuff away from football? Are you doing this? Are you finding avenues to talk to people and those things? Or the other side, like you say, where yeah, that person's doing this for me, they're not doing this, you know what I mean? There's a lot of that comes into it that makes it difficult to process and bring it into it, so it's not easier.
So you mentioned obviously your loan move to Notts County, and then there's an array of other clubs. How did you cope with the transitions of moving city to city, club to club? How did you cope with that as a player?
Yeah, it's well, I'd say even the first real move away from home, I left school a year before, in year 10, didn't do my year 11 to go full time. So that was my first move. Went into Diggs initially, which was lovely people. I still to this day, I tried to, when I went up to visit them, I tried to visit them and see them. I didn't get time to see them, but...
Is this in Birmingham now?
In Birmingham, yeah. So Birmingham West Hills, when I first went there from Shrewsbury. That was the first kind of move away from home, which was difficult for my mum, obviously. His son's leaving, and that's the first transition, so getting used to life. And they the thing is, they did a lot for me, so I didn't have to do my washing, so I still hadn't doing that life skill, so I was still protected as such. And then my first loan move, Hereford, that was living at home because it's closer. Then Nottingham was my first, okay, this is the real world, I've got to cook for myself, I've got to clean, I've got to do all these things, but I was never shown that. My mum kind of, she did do a lot for me when I was younger. She didn't give me those skills to do because she wanted to, oh no, I'll do it, don't worry about it. And as a young kid, you're like, oh, okay, don't worry, my mum will sort it. Like, so those are the things as you go out alone and you start to, okay, I've got to do this, I've got to sort that. Do you do it enough as a kid? No, because you're a kid and the easy option, you tend to take the easy option as a kid and those kind of things. So it was difficult to really keep myself busy, or whereas I'll just go back, play PlayStations, lie about, do that kind of thing. Is that productive for me? Not really. But at the same time, again, I'm coming back to that. Is there anyone there to guide me, to let me know, well, you should do more? And even at that age, am I going to listen to that? That's the thing. It's the double-edged thing where, yes, people can give you the tools. Do you pick up the tools there and then, or is it something you use later down the line kind of thing? So, yeah, with all the loan moves, it was difficult, but easier because I'd experienced it young. So I was experienced being away from home young, and I've always been a person that I'll go and try it. I'll always try and do these different things. That's me, so that's how I am as a person. So I wasn't scared to go on loan, but when I was going on loan, something I noticed and spoke about, even with my mum actually, we spoke to her about it, it was kind of like, I was going out alone, and depending on the environment, I was putting my mask on and being different in these environments. So if I felt welcomed, I felt a certain way, and it kind of replicated on the pitch as well. It's kind of, I'd go on loan, and everyone, it's one of these things, everyone's like, oh, he's got his first game, he's going to score. No, he is. And I scored on 9 of my debuts or something. So it's that first excitement, I'm there, and let me show what I'm about. Then I'll settle in, maybe I'll score the next one, a few do well, and then once I'm settled into the environment, it'll go that way or that way. Yeah. So because it was kind of, either the environments where you people you like, you get on with, or it's kind of like it's just not for you, and there's bits about it, the manager or whatever it is, and different things within the environment that just doesn't fit with the way you are. As a young player, I put too much on that onus, where it was like, oh well, I don't feel a certain way, so I'm going to put my mask on and not be myself and detach from it. Whereas in an environment where, if you fast forward to when I'm 23 years old at Plymouth, straight away I loved it. That was me. I was like, yeah, this is me. They want to push you, work hard, but they care. And despite the manager not being very person-centred, I still got that from players around me, the fans. It just felt right. So kind of that's when I flourished, and I'm scoring 11 in pre-season. I had 10 by the end of September. It's kind of, it helped me when I was younger. So it's kind of, obviously when I'm older now, I know now it doesn't matter what the environment's like and this, and I can separate myself, and I know how I feel comes from within. It doesn't come from that factor, this and all that kind of stuff. But when you're younger, you are influenced by things. There are things in the environment, there are things going on that will shape the way you are.
Why do you think Plymouth was different? You mentioned obviously the isolation element there.
Yeah.
There's a good quote that you reminded me of, is the older mine is the devil's playground. You ever heard of that?
Yeah, cool.
And it's interesting now you mentioned that obviously from a footballing perspective, you spend a couple of hours playing, and then the productivity element that you mentioned there. Did you think that impacted your game? And then you mentioned Plymouth. How was that different to maybe the other experiences that you had?
Just before I went to Plymouth, I had my daughter the year before in Scotland, so that was a bit of a turning point where I'd finished games in...
This is Ross County?
County, yeah. Sorry. So I'd come back. How could I be in a mood? How could I dwell on things if I've got my daughter smiling at me, wanting to play? So that was a release for me. So that really helped me. So whereas some people might have a kid and feel kind of, I've got an expectation, I've got to look after. It was kind of a release for me. I could see my daughter and I could do these things, and I was just so more grateful. It's like something I talk about now. I became more grateful and for the things I had in life, and then football became a second, because ultimately it is when you've got your friends, your family and stuff. They're the stuff that come before football. Football's what you do. It's not you. It's just a part of your, people tag to this identity thing. They attach it to you and these kind of things. But it's something I love to do and that kind of thing. And it was a career, so we attach ourselves to careers and stuff, and that's how people get these titles and all that stuff. And that's a different thing. But that was kind of the thing that allowed me to really release, and then I'm like just be myself a bit more in that environment.
So did your values change then?
Massively, yeah. It was I mentioned about the chip management book when I was not in the squad in Scotland, so I was out the team. I've always been a person that would work out and do the extras, but it amplified then. I was doing that was me. I was doing so much extra. I was in the garden. I've got a video of me working out, which my partner laughs at. I'm working out in the garden, and I've got the trainers, and I end up slipping on the thing. She's there laughing at me while she was recording, but it just makes me think that I was there in the garden. I've got a band around me attached to the fence, and I'm doing drills and like resistance band stuff and all that. But then I was doing the chimp management, which really allowed me to break down different parts of my mind, the way I thought, and exactly that. Thoughts just being thoughts. They're like not attaching too much to it. I can give whatever energy I want to it, or just allow it to pass by. It's kind of, that's what our thoughts are, just thoughts. So it's kind of what you give to it gets a certain outcome, positive or negative.
Did you work with a psychologist at all during your career? You mentioned obviously the experiences of different transitions when you were younger and how that helped you, and obviously the faces that you put on, and kind of the perception of this is who I am, but obviously different maybe away from the football environment. Did you work with a psychologist to understand that? Or you mentioned identity and ego. I'm sure they kind of take place because a football player doesn't want to be seen with a psychologist because they might be seen as weak, and obviously in these masculine environments. You mentioned Birmingham, for example, which epitomises that point. Did you work with anyone just to understand your purpose and understand those values? And you mentioned your daughter as well. Was that an epiphany itself, or did you learn that through someone? So
originally the first sports psychologist I had, and it's interesting, we had a conversation last week about this. I'm not making it up, but it was literally last week when I spoke to him about it, and he was like, a lot of his work was influenced by the environment he was in. So it was kind of, I had one, but the focus was on all the negatives. So how can I improve that? How can I improve that? Whereas why can't I focus on my super strengths? Like, let's look at this first, and then that will come with it. It was a lot of it, the work. I looked at worksheet, it was kind of around, can you do this? Can you do that? How can we improve this? And why can't you do that? It's kind of, for me as a person, then that's all I'm seeing. That's all I'm seeing. I'm reinforcing the negative and the bits that aren't as good. Whereas I've got all this big super strength and these little bits here. Why am I focused on this when I've got all of this? Yeah. So that was my first experience. And then around that time in Scotland, I was doing private sessions on my own. It wasn't through the club, and to be honest, the club didn't really care what I was doing, so it was kind of more, I took it on myself to get in touch with someone within the chip management team. So I was speaking to them about things, and it really helped me then to kind of dissect the different parts and do I need all these targets, and is that me, and understanding myself a bit more and how I work. That was the biggest thing, and I feel like within football that is one of the biggest things. You need to understand who you are as a athlete, but first of all a human being. Understand what brings you joy, whatever it is. As a human being, you need to understand who you are and what you stand for. Like you said, values, principles and all those things, they stand you in good stead going forward into football, because otherwise you're going to go into the environment and you will be putting on a mask, and you have to, and there's a lot of things around that, kind of like things where you're self-censoring. Like every single day we do it as human beings, we censor ourselves and all that stuff, and that could take me on a whole nother tangent, but it's kind of like, if you're suppressing yourself day in day out, putting the mask on in football, how can you be who you are? You're going to go back into that life and be like, well, I'm a fraud, I'm not being me, and all that. So there's a lot of things that link in that'll make it difficult.
There's a good academic piece of work, Irvine Goffman, I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No.
He mentions that humans are actors, so he has this perception of a stage. Yeah. So humans enter a stage and act in a certain way, but behind closed doors, they're completely different people. And so it's an interesting concept to relate to what he said.
That's football, isn't it? You're there performing in front of all these fans, and they're seeing you as the footballer, and ultimately, why should they see you as anything else? Because they've paid to come and watch you as a footballer. So if you're not playing well, you get stick from people, but away from it, you could be going through all sorts, but as a fan, they don't see that. So obviously it's difficult for then you in the middle having to focus in and forget about that stuff, which is not easy to do when it could be something really serious, health or whatever it might be, or even if it's not serious to someone else, but to you, it's kind of, you might be anxious, you might be depressed, and it's a big thing, being anxious and depressed, but you can't put a finger on why you feel that way. But you can't talk to someone because you're in this, like you said, this masculine environment that's like, oh, just get on with it, you'll be okay. And you have to be this mentally strong, whatever that means, like mentally strong in an environment that doesn't allow you to be weak as such.
You mentioned anxiety and depression. Was that common with other footballers? Just reflecting back on that time, and obviously hindsight is a great thing to look back on and go, I didn't realise that happened, or I was going through that process. When you reflect on maybe teammates, etc., is this a common trend within football?
Oh, there'll be various players, if not more than a handful of players that were going through something on that level within football. But again, that suppressed thing, you don't get the chance to do it because you have to perform, you have to be a certain way every single day, and if you're not, and a lot of things, it was difficult to say. If you thought, you know what, I need to talk to someone, you'll talk to a coach, you'll mention it and like, yeah, we'll try and monitor it and stuff. Then they'll use it against you, so it get used against you. Well, you've come in and spoke to me, you're telling me about this, why aren't you doing? It's like, so they again, he's tried to open up to someone, boom, it's been used against him. So how do you break those barriers down if you haven't got the emotional intelligence on the coach's side or other side to really allow you to have that space to share? It's difficult. It's a difficult environment. Like you say, people see the glamorous side of it, and it is, you get so much joy from. There is nothing that will compare to scoring a goal, nothing in the world, and that's, my partner would not like that, me saying it with a little one being born, but it's that feeling of when you score a goal, it's hard to comprehend when you've got the fans or everything that comes into it, the feeling that comes over you. When you think about football, the first things I go to are the scoring the goal, then the feelings and then emotions attached to a promotion and stuff. It's all the emotions and experiences that I go to. It's not this and that. That's what I go to, the feeling and the emotion attached in that very moment.
Just obviously still play today, but you still struggle potentially coming away from that high end scoring a goal in the Plymouth. Those environments where there's big fandom watching. Do you still struggle with that now? I'm just interested if that's something you think about.
It's a great question, because a lot that's the thing a lot of people do with when they finish the identity and attach themselves to, I'm a footballer. Everywhere you go, first questions are how's football, and no matter how you feel, you've got to deal with that. If you've got stuff going on in football, you've still got to be a certain way, and again, okay, let me put a mask on again and just, you know what I mean, talk. But it's difficult. But for me, it's kind of, I'm from a youngish age, I was able to, like say around that Plymouth time and stuff, separate myself from the football and stuff. And then I used to say to people, and I think I was joking, around 32 and stuff like that, I'll probably finish, and I'm like, nah, because you're fit, you're athletic, you can run, you're fast, you're quick, and I'm still the same person, if not quicker, better than I was then now. But it has to make sense to me. So I play on a Wednesday with some boys just away from it in an indoor hall. I get the buzz of scoring a goal there, so I'm still getting my football fix. So I'm still, no matter where I score a goal, I'm buzzing about it. And then when I play part time and stuff, it's kind of, I know I still get that feeling. And when I don't get that feeling and that thing, that's when I know, okay, it's time for me to step away. But I still enjoy doing that side of things, and I get a lot from working out personally. That brings me a lot of, like, for many people, mentally. Just puts me in a great place. But it's not like I'm working out to look good. It's for me personally, I feel great doing it, so then that's a release for me.
It's interesting you mentioned physical activity. Even national school curriculums, you mentioned your daughter, how the importance of physical health impacts mental health, and obviously from a PE perspective, they're on about curriculum design and how to prevent mental health challenges. It's obviously something that I don't think is raised enough in terms of schooling systems. But I just want to ask you, you mentioned the football clubs that you played for, the loan spells. What do you think there wasn't a moment where you'd stayed at one club, Jake? What do you think that was down to? Was that down to maybe you mentioned your values, etc.? Was it down to maybe coaches? Was it down to bad luck? I'm just interested in why you didn't maybe settle at a certain club and just play football. I'm just interested.
There's a lot of factors. There's one, like I mentioned about myself, where it was I didn't feel settled in different things, but at the same time, all the clubs I'd been to, I'd score goals, and there was something there that, like, and obviously I'd made my debut young, so that stays with you. And so the second part, you've got that many teams that want to take you. It's kind of like, it was kind of like this. So I went on loan here, and it was teams progressively getting better and all that kind of thing. So it made sense to progress, but at the same time, it was kind of opinions. Football is an opinionated sport, so someone might have an opinion of me, and you could do month-to-month loans back then. So I'd go for a month. I'd had one loan move, I scored 4 and 5, and they're like, "No, you can go back to your club." I was like, okay, but then there was a lot of factors around that away from the pitch that weren't meshing, and them wanting a certain other player that came available. Then they're like I said, commodity. We don't need you now. We've got him, and it's a bit like, well, hold on a minute. It's like, I've done this and that, but they don't care. Of a young player and how they're going to feel. But off the back of that, I went on loan again to team that were top of the league. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like when you play against a team, someone will take you. Went there, scored again in my first game against Bournemouth, I think it was, and then got injured next game. Then didn't really play. Then came into it, but the environment, like I said, it just wasn't me. I was a bit too within myself to be in that kind of environment. It was very in your face and putting on your toes, and it was difficult for me to really get used to at that age. So again, went back, another transition, but again, I'd done well enough, so another team would want me. So it was kind of a combination of me as a person. I'd done the youth team thing, so going back to Birmingham was like, well, I've done all that, I don't want to keep doing that, and how do the first team want me? I'm making up numbers, I'm going out again. So it's kind of my eagerness to go. Sometimes maybe I could have just stayed put, but it's my eagerness to go because I had a lot of people that wanted me at a club. Then if you look at the other side of it, some managers just didn't think, oh well, you're not for me. So it's kind of a bit of a balance of me wanting to be eager to go and play, teams wanted me, and then just a manager just not having you. It's just the way football is, so it's one of those.
Just on that, so again, I'll tread carefully with the question, but you've probably experienced a range of different managers. Do you ever think about their leadership and how you mentioned this player care element and protection and the individual that you are, and maybe the leadership styles they have in terms of maybe autocratic or maybe even democratic? Again, it's interesting to hear what your point is on how they approach certain situations. Do you ever reflect back on the different methods and styles? I think maybe if the coach was a little bit more like this, I would have maybe had a bit of opportunity or a different way of valuing that club or performing at that club.
Yeah, I think it is. It's like, I think you point a finger, 3 pointing back at you, kind of. It's kind of like, ultimately, I can say he should do this, he should do that, but I've got to be within myself to say, okay, no matter what's going on here, I know I'm doing all my things right. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Then whatever he says, I know I've done my bit. That's the bit you need to cement first. I think for any young player, current player, whatever stage you're at, as long as you deep down know you're doing everything you can, you're doing all the bits and you're putting everything into it, then I can hold my hands up any day. I'm a lot, that will put me at ease a lot more. But then obviously in the same way, if a manager can have an understanding to, okay, well, he's this kind of character type, I can help him with this and that, how can that not benefit him too? You know what I mean? If he's got someone that I know, okay, even if he's not playing, at least let me be on top of things and say, okay, I can see what you're doing there, I really appreciate that, this and that. but in an honest way. Don't just tell me for the sake of telling me. Like, give me some real productive, constructive feedback that will help me to improve as a player, person, or whatever it is. That can balance it up, and I think that's needed more within the game. But at the same time, how are you going to tell a manager that's had 4 promotions, done all this, and it's worked for him, that, oh well, maybe you should change some of this? But that's why some people stay at this level and they progress, or they just stay this person at this level doing what they're doing. It's those little things. You need to go with the times, and you need to evolve, and that's how you keep changing. And Pep Guardiola, he talks about it each year. How does he get the players to still stay at the same level? He has to evolve himself, and he needs to freshen things up. So there's a balance with all of it.
So it's in your sense, it's controlling the controllables and what you can do, because obviously you mentioned opinions and football subjective, probably even more then, because you think about analysis and data and everything's grown over more recently. Obviously it's probably more subjective when you were playing. You mentioned, obviously we mentioned that the loan moves throughout. There was a time where you went out to Turkey. You mentioned Finland as well. Obviously before we did this recording, you mentioned your son when you were in Finland. But why those countries? How did that come about? And what did you learn from a different culture in a different way?
Yeah, so Turkey, that was kind of the big thing I took from that was, well, I'll say big thing. On the playing side, it was that there's a lot more outside of England. There's a lot of onus on England's the place. Everyone needs to be here, and other countries are disregarded. Yeah. Went there and I'm playing my first games against Fenerbahce in front of like 50,000. I scored, and it's like, yeah, this is me. I want this, kind of that feeling. And then you're playing against big teams, Trabzonspor, Galatasaray, Besiktas, all these kind of clubs. It's like, how could you not want to be a part of that? And the way it was played was kind of like a slower build-up. Then all of a sudden it gets around the box, it's pop, pop, pop. It's kind of a good standard of football, and it's a bigger league. So on the footballing side of things, it was like, wow, I'm playing with players that have played in Champions League and this and that. It was a lot to learn on that side, but it was also a lot more laid back. It was like the way they carried themselves, and it's all nice and easy and this and that and all, compared to England, where you've got to be this, you've got to be that. It was very more laid back, so it was interesting to see that side of it.
Did that suit you? I
think that would have suited me, definitely. But at the same time, back then, did it suit me as much because I was younger, and did I need someone on me a little bit as well? The balance. Whereas now, when I'm older, I know that I can still be laid back and be how I'm going to be, but when it's goal time, I'm on the pitch and I'm locked in and I know what I'm doing. So there's that side, but then obviously there's a side of it when I went out there and I wasn't paid, and all this kind of palaver. I went through that, and ultimately after that I had to go through 7 months of training on my own, going to a park, Mrs. Runners get balls for me and all that kind of thing. That's away from football. It's like I've got to deal with that, and you live within your means, well, whatever money you're earning. And like, obviously I was there, I'd been away to my friend's stag do in Vegas, I went to Dubai and all these things, and then I'd met with an accountant. I was going to sort properly, and I was doing things the right way, but if you're not paid that money that you're owed, like it was 4 months worth, I was like, tried to cancel it. Ultimately they cancelled it late. I couldn't play football for however many months, so then you're at 11 months without pay, then you're 7 months without joining the team. Like, is it really, you know what I mean? There's 2 sides to it, you know what I mean? It's very different. So you've got that, and our unorganised, and because they were a new team in the league, there was a lot of things there where it's very difficult. Where you go fast forward to Finland, where it's just a way of life, where it's probably shaped me even more so the last 2 years, from a Jake Jervis 30 years old to now at 32. It's very different, where I've had that kind of, I've been able to understand myself, I've been given that space to really be grateful and practice gratitude and being present and all those different things. It is a place where it is very much more, again, more laid back, but at the same time you still have the option and the choices in life to whatever way you use it and how productive you are with things. So I had that space to really learn about myself, and I took it with 2 hands, and it really helped me as a person, definitely.
Do you think that shapes you then in terms of who you are today? Obviously you mentioned Finland. I think statistically they're the most happiest country in Europe or across the world. You mentioned obviously the sense of gratitude, sense of understanding yourself. Did you feel that those experiences have shaped the path that you want to help and support others today?
Yeah, it's put me on that pathway. It's like, say, it's a whole gradual journey. I'm picking up bits along the way, but then was really like, okay, I've got this time, what do I do with it? And PFA, great help. They've got all these different courses and stuff, and then I'm asking, I don't know what to do. And this at 28-ish, when I first went over 29, I was thinking about it, but really like, okay, I've got to do something. I've got a lot of time. My family were with me for a year, then I was on my own, so it was kind of like, what am I doing in there? I've got isolation things. How do I deal with not going down that route of isolation and my thoughts and all that stuff? And what can I do to really help myself? Yes, I can work out, but that's an hour and a half. Then I've still got the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Yes, I can go to coffee shop and talk to the boys, and we can really just unwind and do whatever we're doing. But then there's still, what am I doing? So it's that's where I decided to do my counselling for the PFA. So I did my level 2. Thought, let me just try this. It was something that I'd kind of seen myself already. That was kind of that person that people, younger players, would come to talk to, and I'd speak to them and give them that space to be heard and advice and stuff, because I'd experienced so many different cultures in changing rooms. So I was giving back and stuff. So did that, and it kind of just works with me. But that, by doing your counselling course, that is where you really, counselling is one of those things where everyone thinks it's about you learning how to help others, but it's about you understanding yourself, how you work, how the mind works, and all that stuff. So it allows you that space to really look in and be honest with yourself, and that's where it comes full circle, where I'll help others, and it really does just work with me, and it's that kind of pathway and the route I can see.
Would you have done anything differently in terms of your football
career? It's a question I get, and yeah, first thing, how do you regret anything? And you're like, oh, I'll get my back up. Regret? Why would I regret it? All as trying to be a certain way. That's how people are. But if I asked that 7-8 years ago, it'd be very different to now. But I'd say I'm fulfilled. I'm very fulfilled in the career I've had. I've played 400 plus games. I've had promotions. I've played in big stadiums and like things people dream of doing. So I'm fulfilled within my career. Would I have sometimes maybe been so, say, I'll even talk about a moment, Luton, when I went to Luton, I made a decision. When I was leaving Plymouth, there was a lot of why is and this and that, why did he leave? I got brought by Luton, and that was all that transfer window. I was going to Walsall. There's no Luton in the picture. Luton had tried to buy me the year before, and I was like, no, I'm at League One, Plymouth. I just scored 2 against Charlton. I'm like, yeah, if I do well here, I'm going to kick on, or whatever it was. So
was this when Walsall were in the same league as Plymouth?
They were League One.
Similar,
they were League One. They were in there in the League One and stuff. So Luton were League 2 at the time, but at the top of the league doing well.
I was trying to paint the picture, because obviously so much changed.
I'm jumping, but yeah, so it's kind of League One Plymouth, League One Walsall. We were doing well. You had Luton flying in League 2, so this was before the journey where they've got to the Premier League kind of thing. So I had things again that people wouldn't know, away from the field with my mum and different things that were going on. So I felt I needed to be close to home, because Plymouth isn't let me pop home. It's a good 4-hour drive. So it was kind of like, Walsall were interested, basically sorted it out, offered me a great contract they went beyond their means for it. They were going to pay for me and everything, and it made sense being 20 minutes away from home. And then it came to the morning, agents rang me 7 in the morning. Luton are back, and I was like, yeah, okay. Didn't really pay it too much mind. And then he's like, yeah, they're offering this and this and that. I'm like, can I make it work, this and that? But like, Walsall was kind of the one. It's back home, it allows me to be where I need to be at the time. But then there's that fight of aspirations of, where is this club at and where's that club at? And my own career then, it wasn't as if I was back end or anything like that. I was pushing on and kicking on and doing really well. So it's kind of like, do I still chase my aspirations and try and make the other bit work, or do I kind of accept this is how it is and kind of, I wouldn't say end my aspirations, but going to a club like, and this is not disrespect to a Walsall, going to a Walsall who are fighting relegation and not really pushing in, they're not really got those budgets to push, kick on, or a Luton that are new stadium, looking to go back to back. They've got a squad that can compete in the Championship even. It's kind of like, you're in that battle and that fight. So obviously decide on literally driving up the motorway M6, do a stop at Walsall, do a carry on. It was that moment on deadline day. Wow. What do I do? And Walsall managers ring me, didn't answer that phone. I'm trying to think what
who was the manager at the time? Was it Dean Smith? Was it that period?
No, it was before that. It's just before that. So I can't remember his name, sorry. So decided to carry on, but just didn't feel right. Even when I was there and I was about to sign, I'm like, something doesn't feel right. But I'm there and I'm about to sign, so signed, went through it. Just on my little boy.
Just on there, why wasn't it feeling right?
It's a weird feeling. It's kind of like, I don't know whether I was having to move home, my house. I thought I was moving into my house. The person didn't want to leave the house straight away, so I had to wait. So I had to go into like somewhere else in Wolverhampton to live, move all my stuff.
So did you rent a house out? Is that what it was?
Yeah, my friend helped me out of a house. So I just paid him for one of his houses he had. I had my son, literally just had my son. All these different things, but within myself, I just didn't feel right. I was travelling there, and I got into the change room again. This might have been brought me back to when I was younger. Went into the change room after being a main figure in Plymouth. Went into there, and it was kind of like, are you starting again? And it's like all these kind of things and the characters. And I didn't like, it was some parts, it was very cliquey, and the way it wasn't just really sit with me. Some great people, but very cliquey. The way they treated certain people and all this, it just didn't sit right with me. So that kind of happened. And then I was just going through the motions. I started really well, and then got into the environment. I was just kind of going through the emotions, and I was driving 2.5 hours one way, 2.5 hours back, sharing the car school, and I was just not really there. So I'm in the car school, and they're like great lads bantering us, but I wasn't really there. I was just like shelling myself really. So I was going into training, putting a mask on, and I felt that kind of just motions going through it, and didn't really feel like myself. So I was going through a part, whereas people would look at it, he's just signed for this club, he's just got a great contract for almost 3 years and all this kind of stuff, where you should be happy. I was a total opposite. So it's hard to really put my finger on it, but I was feeling that kind of way. So it's just didn't work. It's one of those things where I try and put my finger on it, but I say try and put my finger on it. I was going through all these different transitions without any kind of offload. I was just suppressing how I felt. Yeah, it's okay, I'll get on with it, and I'll drive, and I'll do this, and I'll act like I'm fine, and really throw myself into working out and do this and that, and just not address any of these suppressions and all these things I'm pushing off. So I say, I don't know, but it clearly was all that stuff where I was suppressing it and putting it to the side.
Sounds like, again, I don't know what the average is of a human being, but there's certain transitions that we all go through in life. It sounds like you've gone through so many transitions at the age of 32 that you say you're at. Did you ever think about that in terms of that just actually made you, hard shell to really share these stories and connect with people within the game because of these so many different moves and so many different things that have happened in such a short period of time for you? Yeah,
of course. I think that's football is that industry that really highlights the transitions, because you are going for it day in, day out. You're getting told you're not good enough. Oh, you're not in the squad today. You're not good enough to be on the team. Like that's it in black and white what you're getting told. But that's, again, okay, I've got to deal with that. Next day I've got to get myself in the team, I've got to deal with doing that. Then I've got to sort out being with my family, and I've got to do this and that. There's a lot of things you have to balance and transition with every single day, like we do in all our different jobs. But it's under a microscope, and it's your livelihood, and you need to perform or you haven't got a job. That's where it's different to the outside world, where if you're not performing, you haven't got a job. And then ultimately in the summer you're trying to enjoy your time off, but you're worrying about providing for your family, you're worrying about doing this, you've got to work out in the summer, so you get time off, but you've still got to go and work out, you've got to dedicate yourself to football, whereas a lot of people just want to switch off. But if you do that and enjoy yourself, have a drink, family, friends, holidays and that throughout the summer, you're going to fall behind when you come back. But that's if you've got something to go back to, you know what I mean? If you've got a team. If you haven't got a team, there's so many uncertainties and stuff around it, and that's what it is in football. So much uncertainty and so much stuff you've got to deal with day in, day out. It's not easy to cope with. And then obviously when you haven't got someone to give you that guidance and all that kind of stuff, how do you cope with that? And that's where obviously difficult things have happened in football, with things where horrible things happen. And it's for men, it's obviously a big thing that's highlighted, where men don't feel they're able to really share with people and open up because of the social norms and expectations that are put on men, women and all of us.
So final part then, Jake. So obviously we reflected on everything that has happened in the past, and we touched upon some of the things that are happening today and obviously in the future. My question to you then is, who's Jake Jervis today?
I like it, I love it. So this is something within the counselling thing, it was a big thing around identities and stuff like that. So asking a Jake Jervis who he is 2 years ago, it's I'm a father, I'm a this, I'm a title attach myself to football, this and that. And for me now, I'm a human being who is trying to be as present as I can in the present moment, just being grateful for that. That's kind of what I fall back on, and what will be. Those kind of lifestyle things where that's what I thought, that's who I am as a person, that kind of, and then all the other things are just things attached to you as a person that allow you to be in that moment, allow you to be there. But when I break it down, that is me just trying to be as present as I can and as grateful as I can, and really giving. That's a big thing, just giving to people, and you get so much. People don't realise from giving, you get so much back from kind of sharing an experience with someone and then helping that person and doing these kind of things. You get a lot from that. So it's I'd say that's where I'm at now, and kind of where I exist and try and be which is a journey. It's up and down, and like it's for everyone. It's not a constant. If you could stay in that present, what a feeling place that would be. But you can't, because life is life. So it's I'd say that's where I'm at on a very a lot of people say it's deep level, but that's just where I am, where I'm at. Yeah.
And those values and attributes have obviously shaped this area that you want to go down in terms of player care and well-being and player support. You see lived experiences of obviously going to support that. How have you found that process of supporting athletes, coaches, players, people, human beings? Exactly. How have you found that as a whole?
It's always evolving. It's always evolving. So it's because everyone's so different and we're all different individuals, but it kind of comes back to the same kind of things, the way people feel and the human being aspects. It's always coming back to those aspects, the emotions and the feelings people feel. So it's kind of, I would say it's an interesting one, because you never come to the same solution and answer on things. It's always going to be different. So then that's what I like about it. It's like, it gives me something to think, feel and discuss with people. And me, I'll get excited. You see my hands go and all that kind of stuff. It's a good space to be in, because there's so much that will be different from day to day. You don't just have the norm and all that kind of thing. So it's obviously attached to helping people strive to be in a certain place where they want to get to. And if you see that not only on a well-being side, but on that performance side, because there's so much I can do with my coaching and stuff and badges and all that stuff that are attached to that. You bring that all together. You've got the coaching, the counselling, the 15 years experiences, all the transitions, all that stuff. There's a lot there to really give back to people and really share on those experiences. So it definitely does help.
So final question, Jake. I always ask this to my guests, and I have to always try and word this question properly, because people have kind of gone, what do you mean by that? But if I was to fast forward maybe the period where you retire and you kind of go to yourself, okay, I've done my football, I've done whatever it is that I need to do, I'm going to sit back, relax and chill out for the remainder of your life. How would you like to be remembered? Is there anything that you think you want to maybe do over these next couple of years that will really bring importance to myself, and obviously those values that you mentioned? Is there anything that you think that you want to maybe leave like a legacy or anything that's relevant to the area that we've spoken about? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. Total sense. I think there's, again, it changed. It's I can answer it now and it might change then, but right now I'd say and I think this is one that a lot of people see me as, just that kind of proactive, I work hard in everything that I do. I'm that kind of person, and that, like, remembered for those kind of good traits and characters, but someone that was just there to, you're there to, not even a good person. I don't like saying the good and bad person, because what is good or bad, but more so like that person that's just there for someone to feel heard, and you can talk to me about everything. Because people can say, if you're going for anything, talk to me, but do they really mean it? Do they really open that space up for someone? And like, that's where that's how I'd rather be remembered, as that person that was there for someone and being able to do these different things, rather than he's achieved this. That's like, for me, getting, like, when someone says, you've done great at this and that, I'm kind of, I take it hard to say, thank you and all that kind of, you know what I mean? It's kind of, for me, it's more it's great and it does look good on paper and all that stuff, but for me, the personal relationships and that kind of stuff, if I can come out and say, that person's seen that side of me and I'm allowed to be my authentic self and I've shown that's how I want to come across, really. Success is a feeling, not a metric. There you go. Very much feelings, emotions, always spoken about it. It's all those emotions and memories in time, isn't it? It's not the, like you say, the accolades and all this stuff. When you look back on when you're a kid and you relate to you see some Monster Munch, for example, or you see those, and then you go back to that feeling when you're a kid. I remember having that. It's the feeling that you attach to when I had it. So it's not the actual object and what it is, it's the feeling that you attach to these things. Where can listeners and viewers find you, Jake? Are you on social media? Social media, so I've got my open Instagram, which is jjervis14, at jjervis14. I'm also on LinkedIn, so those platforms are very active on, so anyone wants to find anything on there, a few podcasts, different things, and I'm there. We'll put the links to your social media, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, and any other, maybe a goal reel of your highlights. There's a few of those. We'll put those in the description. Jake, I just want to say thank you for speaking. You speak very elegantly. You're very proactive, like you said, hardworking,
and you've got a fantastic determination. I sense that energy from speaking to you, so I just want to wish you well in the future, and I only think there's going to be positivity from what you've spoke to me today about, as well as going forward. So just want to wish you all the best with that, mate.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Appreciate you having me on, and hopefully some exciting things coming soon.
Absolutely.
Never give up.